Oh, בסדר. תודה רבה. Shalom Aleichem to everybody. I wish I could say a personal Shalom Aleichem to everybody here, the few people that I see. In any case, as Noah requested, we're going to be recording it, which I just started, and I'll put it on the group as a recorded share on WhatsApp as well. Okay, so one last thing. We are beginning. So, speaking of the night as Leila Seder, I'd like to talk about this evening about the Seder aspect of Leila Seder. And Bezat Hashem, tomorrow night, I'd like to talk about the Leil part of Leila Seder, which is what Josh Friedman asked, and that is, what is it about Pesach, that it's Dafka specifically Pesach night? It's the Yetzirah that begins at night and ends during the day, and the whole HAGGADAH Shel Pesach. And the special Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim with Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim is Dafka Adin Belayla. It's something that happens specifically placed at night. Okay, so I'd like to talk about today, as I said, Leila Seder, the definition, Seder, the night of order. What is it about this night? What is it about HAGGADAH Shel Pesach? What is it about our annual celebrating of our birthday as a people, which is, as I'm sure most of you know, or maybe all of you know, that's really what Seder night is. At our Seder night, every year we give out like birthday tags, happy birthday tags, because really that's the birthday of Klal Yisrael. It's an explicit pasuk in Sefer Yechezkel. We quote it a lot. Yechezkel, I think, Yud Chet, if I'm not mistaken. There, in the context of the psukim that we also say in the Haggadah, v'omar lach b'damayich rei v'erech mitbosesech b'damayich v'omar lach b'damayich chayi v'omar lach b'damayich chayi. In the context there, we talk about umoldotayich b'yom huledet otach. Klal Yisrael is born, our Yom Huledet, our birthday or birth night, actually, is at the night of Yetziat Mitzrayim. Therefore, this annual celebration of our birthday, our annual coming back into existence as a people, or the annual recreation of Klal Yisrael as a people, as a Klal Yisrael. And you could already hear the uniqueness of the two mitzvot aseh, that are the only two mitzvot aseh that if a person does not actively perform them, then chas v'shalom, he is chayav karet. And all other kritut, as we know from Masechet Kritut, Lamed Vav Kritut, they are all lot asehs. All kritut are lot aseh, besides two mitzvot aseh, that if a person does not fulfill, or he can fulfill, and of course, all the halachic requirements for him to become a chayav karet, chalila. But the two mitzvot are Korban Pesach and mitzvat milah, brit milah, which are the two bloods of b'damai chayi. Chazal teach us that night of Yetziat Mitzrayim, they performed brit milah, and those two bloods are dam Pesach and dam milah. Those are the two bloods in which we come into the brit with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, and we come into our connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, not only that it's formed originally at the night of Yetziat Mitzrayim, back at Mitzrayim itself, but somehow this annually needs to be recreated and renewed and reestablished. Just like Matan Torah, later on in Shavuot, as we all know, anybody who's tasted some deeper Sfarim is aware of the concept that the deeper you go into Sfarim, the more you see that Moadim are always taking us back to the events and drawing us back from that place, which is very challenging to our common sense, but that's not our topic directly right now. Definitely so regarding Pesach and Yetziat Mitzrayim, and that is being that annually Klal Yisrael are being reformed and reborn and recreated as a klal, as an am, as a people. This organism is reformed every single year, and then no wonder that if a person could and does not fulfill his connection with these dama mitzvot that define him as being part of Klal Yisrael. Number one, Korban Pesach. Number two, Brit Milah. And if those are lacking, so then there's a lacking in his connection, and he disconnected himself, Chalila, from Klal Yisrael. Hence, the disconnect, which is really what being cut off, what karet literally means. And you could already hear the beginning of what's so unique about Korban Pesach, that you get that rare or only unique second chance that we don't find by other mitzvot, that if you didn't get the train, you missed the train, you missed the train. And on Aleph Cheshvan, you cannot listen to the Tkiyat Shofar. And on Yud Daled Cheshvan, you cannot go into a sukkah. I mean, you're welcome to go into a sukkah, but you're not doing anything halachically. You're just going into a hut. But when it comes to Korban Pesach has such a concept of Pesach Sheni. No wonder there we find that scream, Lama nigara, why should we be missing out? Why are we, why can't, it has to do clearly with this nakuda. But in any case, what is it about the day or the night that Klal Yisrael is born, that are the definition for our birth night is Leil HaSeder, the night of order, if I were to literally translate it, okay? Being that it's not another night during the year, but it's actually the return to our birth, that means that this issue of order, of Seder, touches our very essence as a people, if it's defining the night of our coming into existence annually, okay? That's the topic for today. So, some of you, I'm sure, are aware of it. One of the ways I recommend to myself, you can find this also in Sfarim, one of the ways to understand the concept in Torah, one of the ways to understand the concept in Torah, when we're not so clear how to define it, is by examining the opposite concept, and that helps us clarify to ourselves somewhat what the concept actually is. So that means that if we're trying to understand what is it about Seder that defines us, let's examine the opposite of Seder. Opposite of Seder is disorder. The opposite of order is disorder or chaos. And that already starts up a whole discussion for us, because a healthy way to think, I'm suggesting, this is the way I was thinking for myself, and I'm sharing this here, that the moment I go from order to see the opposite of it, the unity of opposites, that's the concept of logic over here. Opposites are really one at their core. So if I examine one side of the coin, I'm examining the other side of the coin as well. And therefore, if I want to go start traveling in Torah with concepts of what is Seder, let's examine what is disorder, what is chaos. So I'll tell you where my mind first goes. Gemara b'Masechet Avodah Zarah and Gemara b'Masechet Sanhedrin. It's the same Gemara. Some of you may be familiar with this. Sometimes there are years that I start the Chumash shears with this. It's a beautiful Gemara, very thought-provoking Gemara. It's a Gemara that puts the entire course of history in a very well-defined context, and that is Shit Alfei Shnin Have Alma. 6,000 years is the world. The world, as we know it, is 6,000 years old. History of the world, history of mankind, history of Olam Hazeh is Shit Alfei Shnin. Gemara continues and says, and breaks down the 6,000 into three segments of 2,000. Alpayim Tohu, Alpayim Torah, Alpayim Mashiach, or Shnot Mashiach, Yemei Mashiach, I don't remember the last one exactly. Alpayim Tohu, Alpayim Torah, Alpayim Yemot HaMashiach. 2,000 years of Tohu, interesting. The first 1,000 years of the world, of mankind, of human history, from Adam Arishon, 2,000 years they're defined as Tohu, as disorder, as chaos. And then begin Alpayim Torah. We'll examine in a moment where that falls actually in the spectrum of time. And the last are the 2,000 years, which we're completing now. We all know that we're Alpayim Shnot Galut, and we've been in the course of returning from Alpayim Shnot Galut in this generation, or the last two generations. In any case, we have these three sections of Alpayim Tohu, Alpayim Torah, and Alpayim Mashiach. Now, just from that structure alone, how much does that actually teach us? Why? Because the moment I hear that Alpayim Torah come after Alpayim Tohu, and Tohu, without defining it too much, and we know that the Rishonim do at the very beginning of the Torah, and we're going to touch upon it in a moment, and I'm sure you were thinking about it yourself. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, ve'aretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tehom. That's the state of the world at its primary primordial state. But in any case, the moment I talk about Alpayim Torah is coming after Alpayim Shnot Tohu, that means we can allow ourselves to say that Alpayim Shnot Torah are coming to exclude from 2,000 shnot tohu. Okay? Od pam. 2,000 shnot Torah are coming to exclude, in contrast, and to take us out of 2,000 shnot tohu. Meaning, from Briat HaOlam all the way to Torah, 2,000 Torah, the world was in a state of disorder, chaos, disorder, disorganization. Torah comes and provides order to the world. Now, what allows us to say this, by the way, anybody who has a little experience with Maharal, he'll all over his farm, in many different places, the Maharal of Prague explicitly says, "HaTorah hi seder haolam." HaTorah hi seder haolam. The Torah is the order of the world. And that already legitimizes and is a valid makor. One doesn't need bigger shoulders than the Maharal of Prague for a concept. Kacha Torah mugderet al yedei Maharal. HaTorah hi seder haolam. Im HaTorah hi seder haolam, the order of the world, the organization of the world. No wonder that when Torah comes into the world, it comes to exclude me'alpayim Torah. I have no doubt in my mind that when the Maharal gave that definition, Torah is seder haolam, that what he had in mind, at least one of the very significant sources that was in his mind producing this definition of Maharal is this Gemara in Sanhedrin and Avodah Zarah. 2,000 Torah ba'im la'afkia me'2,000 shnot tohu. Okay, so let's, how do we understand that? So we can understand it on two different circles, I would say. On a more primary circle and a more advanced circle. The more primary circle is what we find meaning what we do is, we start checking what happens in the world around the year 2000. So when we do check sources, and if you want afterwards, you can look, for example, in Sefer Seder HaDorot. There were years I used to use that actually a lot. It's a favorite of mine, Seder HaDorot. It's a relatively recent book, 150 years old or so. Seder HaDorot, he based this himself on Chazal and many, many, many sources. Basically, it's a history book from year one, which is Briat HaOlam with Adam HaRishon, of course, year after year after year, until we get to 2003. 2003, Mibriat HaOlam, that's when Hashem says to Avram Avinu, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladetecha mibet avicha el haaretz asher areka. Which means Avram Avinu is the turning point from 2,000 tohu to 2,000 Torah. זאת אומרת, till the days of Avram Avinu, the world was in a state of tohu. Avram Avinu בא להוציא את העולם ממצב של tohu, ולהתחיל לסדר את העולם. The ultimate seder haolam will be when Torah will be given. But that only is a possibility as a result of Avram Avinu coming into the world. Or if you want, you can rephrase it as such. Avram Avinu is the Maaseh Avot Siman Banim for 2,000 Torah, which begin by him. In order to have an effect on the world, to have an effect on mankind, individuals cannot make this revolution. They can begin it, they can plant the seeds for this, which is what the Avot do, which is what Chazal mean that the Avot kept Torah.
Sorry, there are a few people that we can hear quite loudly. If you could please mute yourselves so that we can hear Rav Amos more clearly, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, because this is being recorded.
Okay. Torah. Todah. I said Torah. I never thought about how closely related are Torah and Todah. Something to think about. Just a little tip of the Daled is the difference between them. Anyways, so Avraham Avinu is the Maaseh Avot Siman Banim for the beginning of 2,000 Torah. And that means that Avraham Avinu is the beginning of giving the world order, organization. That's circle one. Circle two is happening at Yetziat Mitzrayim. Yetziat Mitzrayim, why do I say Dafka Yetziat Mitzrayim? Because Yetziat Mitzrayim is really the beginning of Matan Torah. Why do I allow myself to say that Yetziat Mitzrayim is the beginning of Matan Torah? It's from Yetziat Mitzrayim that we count to Matan Torah, which is the 50 days of Sfirat HaOmer. It is actually the very origin of Torah. All 613 mitzvot, we all know, all trickle down from the very first mitzvah, at least according to the Rambam, the first of the Aseret HaDibrot, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim, mibeit avadim. Yetziat Mitzrayim, it doesn't only happen 50 days before Matan Torah. Yetziat Mitzrayim enters into this mitzvah, which is mitzvah number one. Mitzvah number one, which according to the Rambam is the trunk of the tree, mitzvat ha'amanat ha'elokut, the belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He identifies that, not all of Rishonim agree, but the Rambam holds so. The Ramban brings hasagot on Sefer HaMitzvot otherwise. But in different places, in different Sfarim, he recognizes Anochi Hashem Elokecha as mitzvah number one, even though it's not presented as a mitzvah, rather as a declaration. Yet, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that's the mitzvah of Emunah b'Kadosh Baruch Hu. And just let us put ourselves in the mind of the Rambam right now. If indeed, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim, out of which all 10 Aseret HaDibrot come out. And from there, all 613 branches branch off, which is explicitly brought down in Chazal. Rishonim and Makubalim all say that 613 are all included in Aseret HaDibrot. Rasag already, Rabbi Saadia Gaon, I think, says that, and I think it's already expressed in Chazal, maybe in the Zohar. But in any case, that means shekol haTorah kula yotzet מהמצווה הראשונה של אנוכי השם אלוקיך אשר הוצאתיך מארץ מצרים. You hear the depth over here? It's not just that Yetziat Mitzrayim happens a certain weeks before and allows for Matan Torah to happen. It's much, much deeper than that. Yetziat Mitzrayim is so significant that it's the core that all Torah stands on. It's the shoresh shel kol haTorah kula. It's thought-provoking as can be. It puts all of Pesach and Yetziat Mitzrayim in a very, very significant and essential context. Kol haTorah kula mityashevet la al Yetziat Mitzrayim. No wonder that so many mitzvot are zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. You all know I'm not being machadash anything. This is could be understood on multiple different levels. But in any case, so therefore, just alone teaches us how much Yetziat Mitzrayim is a shoresh shel Matan Torah, and how much Pesach, therefore, is the shoresh of Matan Torah. And if Torah is Seder HaOlam, as the Maharal calls it, and if Matan Torah is coming lehafkia the world, to take the world out of a state of 2,000 years of tohu, of disorder, of chaos, so then Yetziat Mitzrayim is the beginning of that. And that's what I meant, that we can examine this concept of Torah coming to exclude the world from its state of chaos, and therefore being the order of the world, Seder HaOlam, on two circles. On the Bereshit circle, on the prototype circle, that's Avraham Avinu, that begins Alpayim Shnot Torah. And then comes a bigger circle, Siman Lebanim. Yetziat Mitzrayim is already the Siman Lebanim for the Maaseh Avot of Avraham Avinu. It all merges beautifully together, because you probably know that the Torah brings down that Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot are Keneged, the Gimel Avot, Keneged Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And that means that Pesach and Avram Avinu correspond to each other. So if Pesach and Avram Avinu correspond to each other, so then that merges together the two circles that we were talking about, both Avram Avinu and Pesach, or if you wish, Yetziat Mitzrayim, each one at its stage is excluding from Tohu and taking the world out of disorder and chaos and taking the world to order. And our job is to try to pour content into it. Let's try to do it right now. What's the depth of the meaning of it? The depth of the meaning of it is as such. Im HaTorah omeret lanu, she'ad HaTorah, and therefore, ad Avraham, or in a bigger circle, ad Yetziat Mitzrayim. The world is in a state of disorder and chaos. But from Yetziat Mitzrayim and on, it enters into this. I understand that for years as such, and we're going to elaborate it on whatever time that we have tonight. And that is, it means that till Yetziat Mitzrayim, the world doesn't have order, or the world doesn't have a direction. It doesn't have a destination. It doesn't have a target that it's aimed at. Maze Omer, we're talking about till that point, Ad Shegi Avraham Avinu. And then on a bigger scale of Klal Yisrael, Ad Shegi Klal Yisrael onto the stage of human history as a nation, we're living in the world of a pagan world, the world of paganism. And the world of paganism, which Mitzrayim represents completely, or expressed itself in everything that Avraham Avinu grew up with, which is where he comes from originally, is a world, just look at Mitzrayim alone, it's a world in which Avodah Zarah is defined predominantly So it also by the Rambam and Chazal as avodat kochavim umazalot. It's predominantly worshiping and sacrificing sacrifices, human sacrifices even sometimes, to the stars and the constellations. And when it came to Mitzrayim, we all know that the constellation of Nisan ended up being their god. And the meaning of that being, and so it's explained already in earlier sources, that it's the month of the spring, and that's where life springs out. And in order to make sure that the gods or the constellation or the god responsible for the life springing out in the spring should come forth to the Egyptians, they used to sacrifice the sacrifices to that, to make sure that they're able to remain in good terms and draw out of this mazal the life that they want for this coming year. So, but what it means is when you live in a world of stars and constellations, you're basically living in a cyclic world, which is basically running around in circles. You're subject to you're living in the world of the seasons, of basically what Shlomo HaMelech called in Sefer Kohelet, in our way back when we used to give the cycle of the Yerushalayim, we talk about a lot, the pasuk in Sefer Kohelet as the world which is governed by the sun, Perek Aleph in Kohelet. Kedai afterwards, for those less familiar, to see the Perek inside. It's not a long Perek, but to put everything that we're saying in context. Ve'ein kol chadash tachat hashemesh, says Shlomo HaMelech, and there's nothing new under the sun. What does it mean, nothing new under the sun? Under the sun, if you go through the countryside of Eretz Yisrael today, at this time of the year, 2,000 years ago, it looked the same. 4,000 years ago, it looked the same. Nothing is changing. The world of some years are more rainy, some less rainy, but basically the four seasons of Vivaldi just keeps playing over and over and over and over again. And in that sense, it's not moving anywhere. It's not getting anywhere. The world from a natural perspective, from a solar perspective, being governed by the sun is not coming from anywhere, and it's not going towards anywhere. It's just running around in circles. And that's the pagan world. And so it's a cyclic consciousness. The whole existential consciousness is that of living in a circle. I'm not expecting to get to. I'm not aiming. It's so hard for us to be able to relate to that. We're born as Jews, Baruch Hashem, into a world in which it's so pashutah. Our basic consciousness is that we're living in a context of history that has a direction to it. From Yetziat Mitzrayim to Achrit HaYamim, Yemot HaMashiach, we grew up on these concepts. It's pashutah. That's the existential consciousness. I'm not trying to sound fancy. It's as fundamental as that. We're wired to think that way, but that's the way we came into this world. We fell into such a world. We entered into such a world where that's so pashutah. So it's our job is to try to unwind it. Imagine a world of being a pagan in Egypt who doesn't have any concept of Yemot HaMashiach. For all we know, the Jews may have been the first one to bring B'chal such a concept that the world is moving towards a salvation, whatever terms you want to use, or whatever other religions use today. We were probably the first to B'chal bring this into the world. It's a chidush B'chal, which is so much part of the way we think. We have to consider the possibility of a world which it completely was not shayach. That doesn't even begin. We're just running around in circles that we're not coming from, and we're not going towards. We just are, and we just have to make sure to, every year that goes by, to get along well with the seasons or the constellations which are pulling the strings behind it. V'zeu, shalom or shalom mitzrayim, and that's basically it. That means that what Avraham Avinu planted the seeds for, and Klal Yisrael, Yetziat Mitzrayim, are now making its appearance. This may be the crux of it all. The big chidush of Yetziat Mitzrayim, which we return to every year, is that Yetziat Mitzrayim doesn't end a process of Galut Mitzrayim. It does, but Yetziat Mitzrayim is not an end. It's more so a beginning. It's a beginning of a process of the Geulat Mitzrayim is the beginning of the process that will end Benisan Atidim Lihigael. Gemara b'Masechet Rosh Hashanah. Benisan Nigalu, Benisan Atidim Lihigael. At Yetziat Mitzrayim, we only began the first half of that long sentence. Benisan Nigalu. But from that day on, all the way to Benisan Atidim Lihigael, hopefully this year, B'ezrat Hashem. So all those thousands of years with every day in the process, and every hour in the process, and every second in the process, though seemingly it doesn't seem always to be there, or reality seems to work otherwise. But the truth of the matter is, what surfaced onto the stage of history, and what began is the unfolding of the historical master plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which was hidden till that point, was revealed, of course, to the first person, to Avram Avinu, at Brit Ben Abetarim. Brit Ben Abetarim is when Hashem reveals for the first time the secret of the history of the world. And that is that your children are going to go down to a nation that are foreign to them, and they're going to be persecuted. And Chazal teach us, we're not going to elaborate on it right now, that behind the four animals which are sliced, I wrote about it recently in a group, are the four world powers, Arba Malchuyot, which really take the world all the way to Yemot HaMashiach in terms of ruling over the world, each one at its time, all the way to Malchut Edom, which maybe we're seeing these days, as I've been writing recently, the crash of the Malchut Edom, V'alu Mosheim B'ar Tzion, Lishpot et Har Esav, V'ayta L'Hashem HaMenucha. But in any case, as I said, Yetziat Mitzrayim is the beginning and the revealing of that. Avram Avinu was already the origin, the Maaseh Avot. So if we said earlier that Avram Avinu is the Maaseh Avot, Siman Banim, for the direction of the world, for the order of the world, and we're explaining now the order is the world having destination, direction, meaning, purpose, as opposed to disorder and chaos, which implies meaninglessness, and therefore lack of destination, and lack of aiming myself at a target, and lack of a acharit hayamim and a tachlit, that it's all, everything in the history is aimed at. Avram Avinu, if he is the Maaseh Avot Siman Banim, he has to receive the historical process, and he does receive it at Brit Ben Abetarim. It's not on the level of Pshat, it's on the inside of the Pshat there. It's not far out Drash, it's in the inside, because otherwise the four animals are meaningless. And that's what Chazal are teaching us, that the foreign animals need to be understood as nothing than the secret of the entire course of history, from beginning and all the way to the end. Let's take a few more minutes and develop this more, and then we'll switch over, for whoever wants, to the other separate shir we're going to talk about tonight. Let's take everything we spoke about onto another level. Going into the actual Haggadah itself, we don't have to actually open the Haggadah, but we all remember this already in our mind. But if you want, you can open up the first, and every Haggadah it's different. But we're all familiar, and the minhag by many families is to first say all the simanim of the Seder before we actually begin the Seder. Okay, so then the simanim of the Seder are the order of the Seder. Haseder shel Haseder ze simanim. Okay, Haseder shel Haseder ze simanim shel Haseder. And how many simanim do we have in the Seder? Sorry if there's noise in the background. How many simanim do we have in the Seder? Anybody? Kadesh, Ulchatz. What?
15.
15, right. Tetzvav, 15. You hear me okay? 15 simanim to the Seder. From Kadesh until Nirtzah. Okay, 15 simanim. Now that's already a very significant number on multiple different levels. In front of me right now, I'm seeing a Chatan, the Bezrat Hashem, will get married in the right timing, the Ilui. We know, Bezrat Hashem, in the right timing, he'll be Zocheh, like all of us should be Zocheh, whether we're married or not yet married, that Shem Yud-Kei should be Shoreh between us and our wives. Ish v'isha zachu, Shechina benehem, and that, as we all know, is expressed in the Yud of the Ish and the Hey of the Isha, and the Yud Hey together, when the space between the Revach, between the Ben Adam Li'ishto, is proper, then the Shekhinah enters into that place and it expresses itself with the Yud Hey. This has many different expressions. Those of you familiar, those not, you can check it out in Parshat Pinchas, when Klal Yisrael counted for the second time after the whole Maaseh with the Zimri and Pinchas. Every mishpacha, every shevet receives a Yud Hey. after having checked how pure our relationships actually are with the whole Maisa with Bnot Moav. But in any case, that is the first thing that comes to my mind in terms of what 15 represents. It takes 15 days for a woman, when everything goes in order, to build herself up in her cycle to be able to fully meet her husband. In fact, biologically, we know even that it's on the 15th day of an average of, if the cycle is actually 30 days of a woman, so then it's on the 15th day that she is actually fertile in a way that she can conceive. There's a machloket poskim, a non-biologist, how many hours is the egg actually out and ready to receive the sperm, but the sperm cell, is it only a few hours, is it 24 hours? But in any case, the reason why there's more of a chance, because as we know, both today biologically, and Chazal knew this already many thousands of years ago, and that is that the zera could remain alive for 3 days. Therefore, it gives those 3 days of an option. But in any case, a woman builds up over 15 days to be receptive to her husbands. Another parallel, there's 15 steps that take us from Ezrat Nashim to Ezrat Yisrael and Beit HaMikdash, which is clearly the parallel to this. It takes 15 days for the receptive moon, which is parallel to the female, to build itself up and fully receive the light of the sun. Okay? Above all this, I do want to mention, maybe we'll wrap our discussion for today and continue it tomorrow. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. Midrash Rabbah on HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, on the psukim that we read in Parshat HaChodesh, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, yesh arichut ma'od gdola b'Midrash Rabbah and other midrashim on HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, and specifically on the Lachem, that is specifically for Klal Yisrael, to count by the moon and not by the sun as Umot HaOlam. One of the things that the Medrash there says is fascinating and beautiful and mind-blowing, and I very often quote it. And that is that when you count the number of generations from Avram Avinu, Avram being number 1, Yitzchak generation 2, Yaakov generation 3, Yehuda, we're going to be developing Yehuda. Yehuda, as you'll see in a moment, Yehuda is generation 4, and then we're talking about Peretz is already generation 5. And when you skip from Parshat Vayeshev to Sefer, to Megillat Ruth, to the closing paragraph there, Ve'ele Toldot Peretz, you keep counting and counting, you get to David. David, just as the gematria of his name is 14, David is the 14th generation. And the 15th generation is already Malchut Shlomo. Malchut Shlomo, and that's already on the 15th generation. The 15th generation, Shlomo HaMelech brings Klal Yisrael to a level of a world power, shining the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as being the moon of God in the world. Hashem doesn't shine in Olam Hazeh. The sun doesn't get to be seen at night. Olam Hazeh domeh lelayla. That's, of course, what we're talking about. It does shine at night, but only through the moon. That parallels to Olam Hazeh, which is Laila. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not appear, but it does appear through the moon, and that is Klal Yisrael. It's given to you because you resemble the moon. That's what the Medrash says. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, because you resemble the moon. And what way do you resemble the moon? You build up over 15 generations, and you die out over 15 generations. That's the more painful side, or if you wish, the dark side of the moon, is taking us from generation 16, which is the split of Malchut Shlomo, Yeravam Rechavam, over the course of the decline. Oh, that's already, of course, Sefer Melachim Aleph and Sefer Melachim Bet, until the 30th generation, which is Tzidkiyahu, whose eyes are taken out by the Babylonians, and that's the end of Malchut Yehuda, and the end of Malchut Bet David for then. And that means that the story of David HaMelech's Malchut corresponds to the moon, and the moon builds up. The moon of Klal Yisrael builds up over 15 generations, reaches a peak. The Zohar says this explicitly, as it always opens up more than what Chazal hide in the Medrash or in the Gemara. And that is that the generation of Shlomo HaMelech is the generation of Sihara Ba'ashlemuta, the generation of the full moon. And then the moon starts dying out. And that's already Yeravam and Rechavam. When Klal Yisrael disunify, the results 15 generations later in the generation of Tzidkiyahu. Why is this so significant? Because this is the secret behind, this must be the secret behind the 15 simanim of the Seder. The 15 simanim of the Seder define the order of the course and the process of history. which in one cycle of it, or one circle of it, stretches from Yetziat Mitzrayim all the way to, or if you wish, Maseh Avot will go all the way back to Avram Avinu. But it surfaces onto the stage of history in Yetziat Mitzrayim, reaches the peak in the days of Shlomo HaMelech. That's when Yetziat Mitzrayim reaches its peak, when Klal Yisrael are settled in Eretz Yisrael, Vayaket Tavo ala Aretz. It's the closest we ever got to Yemot HaMashiach, and that allows for Shlomo HaMelech to build Beit HaMikdash, which is built as a complete excluding from Yetziat Mitzrayim. If you just see the psukim there in Sefer Malachim, Perek Chet, I think, when Shlomo HaMelech completes the Beit HaMikdash, the psukim explicitly say the number of years from Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's a lot to think about. Beit HaMikdash hua Gemar HaYetziat MiMitzrayim, which is incomplete. We don't know that yet when we're there. But we do know that, because if Beit HaMikdash HaRishon was destroyed, that means that clearly its Yesodot were not yet complete, and the historical master plan necessitates more stages to go through. But the point is that the 15 simanim of the Seder indicate to us the direction of the Seder, that Leila's Seder contains the seeds of every single year. It's the process of Geula. It's the story of Klal Yisrael throughout the ages. It's all expressed and embedded and rooted in the 15 simanim, which are all hinting towards the historical process of the buildup from Avraham Avinu, who corresponds to Pesach, as the Torah teaches us, and reaches its peak with Binyan Beit HaMikdash. And if you want to hear the parallel of that inside the actual Haggadah itself, of course, it's the 15 Ma'alot Tovot, the Makom Aleinu, where the last one is Beit HaMikdash. That's the complete expression of that inside the Dayenus. Kama Ma'alot Tovot LaMakom Aleinu. And clearly, you don't have to bring a raya to this. It's crystal clear, even if the sources don't say it. It's a pashut to our ears. It corresponds to the 15 Ma'alot, the steps. There, we don't use the term Madrigot Ma'alot, the 15 Ma'alot that were from Ezrat Nashim to Ezrat Yisrael. And it corresponds to the 15 Shira Ma'alot in Sefer Tehillim that were said on those Ma'alot. That's Kama Ma'alot Tovot LaMakom Aleinu, and the peak of it is Beit HaMikdash. And that's the structure of Leila Seder, is all giving us already the content of what it's all about. The fact that what happens at Yetziat Mitzrayim, we'll finish with this stage for tonight. Yetziat Mitzrayim surfaces and reveals and gives birth not only to Klal Yisrael, the Klal Yisrael's story, the Klal Yisrael's eternal story, how it's going to look like throughout the ages, and that is a process of Geula that starts here and ends the Geula b'Nisan Atidim lehigael. That's the order, that's the Seder of history, all being prepared and redefined, and we return to that and reproduce it and reconnect to it on and over the course of Leila Seder. Once you see it to that extent, you hear that this is not over-darshaning and over-reading into Leila Seder. Once we realize that the 15 simanim it's such a significant number, and we just touched upon it in a nutshell, I sense that there's so much there, meaning you hear the depth of it. The depth of it is what really Beit HaMikdash, which comes at the 15th generation, represents. The meeting point between Knesset Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bringing out Shir Shirim, which we read on Pesach. And that is the Dod and the Raya meet in their bedroom and in the Kodesh HaKodashim, the two Kruvim. That all comes out. That's what 15 represents in the first place. Ish v'isha zachu shchina b'nehem. The Shekhinah is between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Shekhinah really is between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in this world. It's what's between us, so to speak, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We build up. We are like the wife that needs to build up over 15 generations in order to be proper recipients to the light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to bestow on us, which is what Beit HaMikdash actually is. All these parallels of these 15 correspond to that. The moon builds up over 15 days to receive fully the sunlight. Klal Yisrael builds up over 15 generations to receive Hashem's light completely and to be able to be Or LaGoyim here in Eretz HaKodesh. We don't fully live up to that. We lose that. Malchut Shlomo, the Gemara Megillah, Masechet Megillah teaches us it did not complete itself. It was a world power that did not complete itself. In that sense, like the other world powers, they all don't complete themselves. Baruch Hashem, in the case of Shlomo HaMelech, it's painful that it didn't complete itself. And yet, at the same time, in the broader perspective, it's part of the master plan that it's going to only complete itself only at the end of days. Seder. We'll sum it up as such. HaTorah, mitchilata. HaTorah, 5 חומשי תורה. כל התורה כולה מתחילה בראשית ברא אלוקים את השמיים ואת הארץ. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך על פני תהום. כל התורה כולה באה להפקיע, to exclude from a state of tohu. And we all know what this means. And we all experience this. Nothing here is high machshava. Nothing here is philosophy and Kabbalah. We know exactly what this means. Everybody who's listening in right now is experienced enough to know. When we have Torah in our life, we feel that somebody opened up our eyes. We have clarity. We're able to see things in a lit way. We're able to have perspective. When we lose touch with Torah, things get blurry, things become confusing, and things become dark. Kiner mitzvah v'Torah or. Torah provides order to life. Torah provides order to our head more than anything else. And as a result, everything else in our tree, coming from the roots of my head, receive their proper life and light. Tov. We'll continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow night. Let us set that part. Yes. Yes, Eitan.
Amos.
כן.
אורי.
שלום עליכם. לא ידעתי שאתה פה.
תקשיב.
שלום הרב אורי.
אני גם אשתי פה.
שלום הרב עמוס.
Hello, Ori. Hello, Ori.
גם אשתי שלי, שלום. אתה שומע, 400? יכול להיות?
You see anything more beautiful than Uri Kari's smile?
אתה שומע, 400? כדאי להתייחס למצוות עשה, כמו שאמרת, הדברים שמי שנמצא למשל בבידוד, איך הוא יכול לקיים את זה, דברים שקשורים גם לימים האלה, אולי למחר. איזה מצוות הוא מחויב, איזה לא, איזה פחות. מספר לעצמו אם הוא לבד בבידוד.
בסדר, נתייחס לזה בהמשך, בעזרת השם. אתה מתכוון בליל הסדר.
כן, במדין הבדיחה, אומרים שיש 15 דברים בליל הסדר, יש השנה 30. כי אחרי כל סדר, אחרי כל סימן, צריך לרחוץ ידיים. זה קדש, הורחץ. הורחץ, הורחץ. כרפס, הורחץ. זה 30 השנה. יש לך פעמיים.
אשריכם ישראל.
רבי.
I have to tell you guys, אני אגיד בעברית, כל השנים לא זכיתי להיות בליל הסדר עם משפחת קרי, אבל אני כן זכיתי, דיברנו על סימנים, להיות שם יחד עם המשפחה, היקרה שלי בליל ראש השנה, וזכינו לעשות סימנים ראש השנה. ועד היום שאנחנו גם עושים את זה בבית, עושים את זה בסגנון ובנוסח משפחת קרי. זה... טוב.
Rebbe?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's possible Rebbe already mentioned this, but I think also it's very interesting how Pesach night is also on the 15th night of Nisan.
Oh, I was going to say that. Toda Rabba Chaim. Thank you for
pointing that symbolizes the whole union.
נכון. More so than any other system of 15. The whole night, the whole chatzot is the chatzot of the night of the 15th, which means it's the buildup of the moon from HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, that month of Nisan, when it reaches its full revelation, which is the full moon, when it's at the peak of the sky, at that moment, which is chatzot. I'll tell you how I know this in a moment. That's the moment of the birth of Klal Yisrael. We're born on the month of Nisan. Maybe we'll talk about, more about this some other time or maybe tomorrow. But the 15th day, when the moon is full and at the top of the sky, at the moment of Chatzot, Klal Yisrael is born at that moment. B'ni B'chori Yisrael is born, comes into the world. When did I chap this? I chap this many, many years ago. When I was, it was the only time that I had to be Seder, Lela Seder in the army. I was doing Miluim in the Chermon. Zachiti לעשות הרבה מילואים בחרמון. Maybe that's why I live not so far from that today for some years. But my best filot in life were on the top of the Chermon. You look at life from above. At that same miluim that I'm talking about, we finished miluim already, and I finished what I had to do, and Yeshiva didn't begin yet, and I went to my mempei, to my mefaked, and I said, you know what, can I stay another few days? And he said, you want to stay a few more days? He never heard such a request. I said, yes. He said, let me stay there. To go back into Olam Hazeh when you can hover above and look at it from above. Anyways, why am I mentioning it? So we had a Seder, a boy from Merkaz Harav and myself, we ran the Seder for a whole bunch of people there in Mutzav HaChermon, which is famous for being Ha'enayim Shel HaMedina, the eyes of the Medina, the eyes of the state. Because from there you see deep into Syria. It's not the only place, but that's like the center. But in any case, Ha'enayim Shel HaMedina, we did this Leila Seder there. And of course, you don't go till 3 o'clock in the morning with these people. Rather, by like, I think 15 minutes before Chatzot, we finished. And at Chatzot, at 12 o'clock, I had to go up. It was around Chatzot. I had to run up and do my guard duty at the very top of the whole Mutzav HaChermon. It's Pesach time. The Chermon, like this year, Baruch Hashem, was all white. I go up. I step out of the imda, the post, and I was just absolutely amazed. The sky was absolutely clear. The Chermon was absolutely white. The moon, this is the moment of Chatzot. The moon is completely big, complete white, shining completely on the entire white Chermon. And I thought I was going to faint. I was just like, this is the moment. And then I chaved that the moment of Chatzot, that's when the moon is at the peak of its sky. And then reflecting upon it over the years, notice next time you're looking at the moon, that when at Rosh Chodesh, at least that's the way it is from this angle in Eretz Yisrael, Rosh Chodesh, the moon, the little banana moon that you see, is already about to set in the west. So you only get to see it for like an hour, half an hour or so, and then it sets. Every day in the month, it starts rising more to the east, more to the east, more to the east, more to the east. I don't know if you see my hands. And on Rosh Chodesh, and we get to see it beautifully in the Golan. The Golan is the most, because it's high up, but it's also plateau. The Golan is the prettiest place to see the moon rise. And you see the moon rise on the full moon, on Tet Vav, the full moon rises exactly at sunset. And that means that the moon fully does its job of being Ma'or Gadol, Ma'or Katan, I'm sorry, Lememshelet Halayla. It's completely in sync, Dafka, when it's full. It's a lot to reflect upon. It's somehow out of sync when it's not full. It's only on the full moon does it actually rise at the beginning of the night, and it sets at the end of the night. And I had a shmirah there for 6 hours, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun rose. By then, the moon already went throughout the whole stretch on to set. The sun rose and was completely red, and the moon was shining back its light. It was an amazing experience, but I came out with a lot of clarity, and it touches upon your point, Chaim. Tov, what time is it already? Whoa, Tov, we went over time. I'm going to take a 1-minute break for those who want to continue. Those who want to not continue, so you're welcome to leave, and we'll meet again tomorrow night for those who are interested to continue with Leila Seder. We'll move on to talk about the Leil aspect of Leila Seder of tonight. We talked about the Seder part of Leila Seder. But I would like to, as I wrote to the group, I would like to go into, I don't know, we'll spend a lot of time, but like 10 or 15 minutes in terms of Inyanei Diyoma, in the sense of the events that we're experiencing and the avoda that la'aniyut dati, kedai to consider going into. Let's just take 1-minute break. I'll drink a little water, and we're going to continue. Sada, welcome to stay.
How are you guys? What do you guys think? David HaMelech is the 14th door before Shlomo, and Hallel is the 14th of the Simanim.
Interesting.
What's your point? Cool. You're saying that Hallel is Tehillim, so therefore.
No, I'm saying Hallel is David HaMelech, and then it lines up.
I hear you.
I wonder if we went through each step of the Seder, if each step corresponds to that generation somehow.
I was thinking that also.
I was as well, yeah.
I'm not sure how Yaakov lines up with Karpas.
Oh, wait. Are you serious?
He made.
I heard an amazing Dvar Torah on that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, about the karpas, the dipping, that karpas comes up from Megillat Esther in reference to like the woolen tapestries that Achashverosh had. And it corresponds to the dipping that the brothers dipped the woolen like coat of blood. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. Really, really interesting. Really cool. So
Well,
we're like
what you did, what you were doing was connecting the generations with the simanim.
Yeah, because we were saying, according to Eitan, brought up how Hallel is the 14th, which corresponds to David with Tehillim. So we were saying we wonder if each step corresponds to each generation. So then Eitan happened to say, I don't know how Karpas corresponds to Yaakov. So I said, it happens to be I just read this like 2 days ago that like this Dvar Torah. So it's so funny.
Wow. So if it was worth coming just for that, for me, for just hearing that, that's great. Wow. Never thought about it. Excellent point. Toda rabba, Eitan and Josh. Whoa.
And Zach and everyone else.
the David and the 14 and Hallel, that's like screams out. Whoa. Sorry. So we'll all think about it, and we'll all come back B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow night. If anybody has chidushim on that note, b'vakasha. Okay. So some of what I'm going to be talking about now in terms of Inyanei Diyoma is, of course, we'll start off by dedicating these words for the well-being and refuah shlema of Kol Cholei Amo Yisrael, Kol Cholei Amcha Yisrael, and we'll even add a bracha for all Umot HaOlam as well. Kadosh Baruch Hu should bring refuah to the world, Yeshua for the world, and everything that is happening should happen berachamim gedolim ve'atzumim. I think we all sense, Mayor Benatar called me today asking if we want to reignite our Daf Yomi Chavrusa, which we discontinued. But in any case, he started off saying things that I said, I identify with every word you're saying completely. And I think everybody is experiencing that. He just said it in his Mayor Benatar concise, gentle way. And just put in 2 sentences, I think anybody who's definitely a thinking ben Torah and doesn't live life in general in a shallow way, experiences these very days with what we're going through, somehow a lot of light and a lot of darkness somehow mixed together. I know this is a phrase, I use it a lot, sources use it a lot in terms of Ov v'chosher meshamshim b'irvuvia, about the stage of Ikvat HaMeshicha. I've been using it myself a lot of times in Shurim and for myself in my mind for years already. But now the extent of it reaches a peak where it's like, I'm sure many of you also go back and forth in your mind between focusing on the painful, scary, uncertainty aspect of all that's going on and the grief and we don't know where it's all going towards and deaths in the community and dafka from people and the Haredi community in America and Israel and Bnei Brak, mitzad echad and mitzad and all how careful we need to be from the plague. On the other hand, we feel that as I think something deep in us tells us, and and you can hear it from Anashim Gedolim, you can hear it from Rev Katz, and for those of you who may have listened to what I posted or from other places, you hear it from other Anashim Gedolim that these are special times. These are Yamim Gedolim that we're going through by the very fact that the world as we knew it till today is being put at a halt, it's being put on pause. That's clearly something very big happening. And when we say something very big, we mean it in the positive sense of the word. But how can you say that when there's so much pain and death in the world? Nachon, it doesn't. Jews are meant to be elastic enough and flexible enough in their mind to be able to be in more than one place simultaneously. Not sometimes here, sometimes there. Simultaneously to be in 2 places at the same time. It's possible. It's an internal avoda. On that note, as I mentioned in the group, in the WhatsApp group for those who are there, the psukim, I'm sure I'm not the only one, many people I'm sure are quoting these psukim in Sefer Yeshayahu Kaf Vav. For those who did not see it inside, could I afterwards open up, or if you have a Tanakh, you can open up inside right now and look in those psukim. Yeshayahu, Perek Kaf Vav, the last 2 psukim, if I remember correctly, of the Perek, Lech Ami, bo b'chadarecha, go my people, as I wrote in the group, those psukim are in the context of Acharit HaYamim. All the psukim around there are talking about Acharit HaYamim. Lech ami bo b'chadarecha, come into your rooms. Chavi kim'at rega, ki Hashem yotze mimakomo. I'm not quoting it exact, but go into your rooms, hide for a moment until the ad ya'avor za'am, until the anger passes. Ki Hashem yotze mimakomo, something along those lines, because Hashem is coming out of His place. Hashem is coming out of His place. Hashem is revealing Himself, and therefore going into the hiding. It's hard not to think of those psukim in the context of the days that we're experiencing right now. None of us experienced this ever, not the young and not the old. We experienced other things. We've experienced wars. Our grandparents experienced the Second World War, each stage with its unique challenge. But this having to run into the rooms and be secluded like this, this is something none of us ever experienced, and not our parents and not our grandparents, and we never heard of such a thing. But, and this is, I guess, the crux of it, and I may have written it in one of the pieces that I wrote, is that in the same way that with Rashbi and his son, that if one understands Rashbi and his son going into the cave, and he describes that it's coming up soon in Daf Yomi, the running away as an act of running away from the Romans, and that's basically explaining what going into the cave is. It's as shallow as can be. Because Rashbi and his son, by running away from the Romans into the cave, they end up not only running away from, but more so, they running towards who otherwise they would not have become. Rashbi and his son ended up producing Sefer HaZohar and delving into the Sodot HaTorah and bringing them out to us, as we know, and only as a result of running into the chambers of the cave. And had they not had those 12 years of that experience, or 13 years possibly, so then they would not have become who they became. And that means that that's pounding us on the head and demanding the same thing from us as well. That is, am I only busy running away from a virus? Or at the same time, and with no contradiction, I may want to be like Rashbi and his son. I'm not only running away from, but I want to run towards. And that, of course, that already brings about the title of this series, which I've mentioned in the group a few times. The psukim, the beautiful psukim in Shir HaShirim, the third pasuk, I think, in yeshiva, we sing it. I used to sing it. In my mind, it's a song that Rav Chaim Eisenstein brought into yeshiva. He used to sing it a lot. It's a tune taken from a different song, an old song, but not sure who put it on the words of Mashcheni acharecha narutza, Heviani amelech hadarav nagila v'nismecha bach. Beautiful psukim, always beautiful, with so much depth and content, always relevant, especially in the month of Nisan, where we actually come into the Mishkan with the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Sefer Vayikra, and I talked about it, or mentioned it just before Shabbat in the group. But on the times like this, where we're actually literally brought or told to go into our rooms, it's hard not to think about it in the context of these psukim.
Rav Amos, where is it? Where is that pasuk about going into the pnimiyot, into your rooms?
Just 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay, what was that? I didn't hear.
You said it was chavav of. Where's the makar for going? Yeah.
Sefer Yeshayahu, Perek Kaf Vav. I think it's the last 2 psukim. I don't have a Tanakh in front of me right this second. Yeshayahu, Perek Kaf Vav. I think it's the last few psukim of the Perek. Might be even actually the last 2 psukim in Perek Kaf Vav. Lech ami bo b'chadarecha. So we'll talk about it more tomorrow. We just have a few minutes to go, but. We all know, and our sources teach us, that we're in that stage of history where we are towards the end of Malchut Edom. Why do I say that it's so clear that we're towards the end of Malchut Edom? I'm saying this even before these times. I would say this also a few months ago, and a year and 2 years ago, that we're towards the end of Malchut Edom. So first of all, just in terms of the schedule that Torah gave us, the schedule that Torah gave us was that Malchut Edom is going to rule over the world until Yemot HaMashiach. I wrote about it recently for those who read it. והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוקים מרחפת על פני המים. Chazal darshan the psukim over there, which we touched upon in the previous shir, somewhat, as pertaining to the 4 Daled Malchuyot, which then come again and appear as the 4 animals in Brit Ben Avatarim. So the Haaretz Hayta Tohu refers to Malchut Bavel. Vohu, Malchut Paras Umadai. Choshech Zu Yavan, as we all know. The Al Pnei Tehom is Malchut Edom, which the Medrash goes on and says, just like the Tehom, you don't see the depth of the deep, you don't see its end, so too you don't see the end of the longest of all the Malchuyot or Galuyot, and that is Malchut Edom. ורוח אלוקים מרחפת על פני המים, זה רוחו של מלך המשיח. Just from that structure of that Medrash Rabbah and Parashat Bereshit alone, we already hear what we know from sources, many sources, that Malchut Edom takes control of the world, changes format, and it changes its garment, but it's the same Malchut Edom and rules over the world all the way till Yemot HaMashiach. Ad psukim that we said this morning, V'alu Mashiach b'har Tzion nishpot et har Esav, then and only then, והייתה להשם המלוכה. אז מתקיים, ורוח אלוקים מרחפת על פני המים, זה רוחו של מלך המשיח. So that alone, just in terms of the schedule the Torah gives us for history, we're towards the end of Malchut Edom. That's number 1. Number 2, all the simanim that Chazal gave us in Perek Chelek, Masechet Sota, but specifically in Perek Chelek, I wrote about it also, are all coming together to very clear near downfall of Malchut Edom. And that, as I said, I would say this also 2 months ago, before we even heard of Corona. How much more so now that we see that the entire world, and when we say the world, all world with all nations and everybody, but the world of Olam Hazeh is ruled over by Western society, by secular Western society, secular Western technology. And even though a lot of the technology may come from the East, it's the Western world with all that it means. It's Malchut Edom and its culture completely controlling the world, controlling very much the minds of people, and very much influencing us and challenging us. And when this, all of a sudden, kimat overnight, we find ourselves in a world which is coming to a halt, being put on pause, and such a global magnitude. It's hard not to think about it in the context of Malchut Edom possibly coming to its end. As I wrote, I'm going to say it also here, we don't know details. We're not meant to know details. We're meant to know overall patterns. That's always the case. We knew in advance that there was going to be Malchut Edom. We knew that it's going to hand over Malchut back to the Mashiach, which is why it's one of the reasons why Malchut Edom is compared to the pig, to the Chazir. Sha'atid Chazal say, Le'achzir Malchut le'Yisrael. It's future to give the Malchut back to Klal Yisrael after it was taken away from Shlomo HaMelech. It's the Malchut that gives it back. We know that, but the details are not given to us. They're left open. They're left open also for the choices that people make and that nations make. But how many more stages? What will they look like? We don't know. But it seems like that Malchut Edom is being put on such a dramatic and traumatic halt and pause that it's hard not to think about it in that context. What we'll talk about on this section tomorrow night, we'll delve into the origins of this, into the prototypes of this in Sefer Bereshit, and that is Yaakov and Esav, and we'll see the relationships there and how this leads into the avoda of these times. In this section, Haviani Amelech Hadarav, I'm not so much busy with what I'm trying to write every few days, and those pieces that I'm trying to publish, and that is Thoughts on a Changing World and Understanding of It. In these series of Haviani Amelech Hadarav, it's more the avoda, what avoda is meant to take place in our rooms, what avoda internally is meant to take place in the rooms and the chambers of our hearts. Continue, Bezrat Hashem, both HAGGADAH Shel Pesach and Haviani Amelech Hadarav, same time, Bezrat Hashem, 9 o'clock, unless there's any change, but Bezrat Hashem, if we don't hear otherwise, 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Toda Rabba, appreciate it. Any responses, comments, questions, you're welcome to send to me, to my tablet. And I have to stop because my wife needs the computer, and we promised to help somebody. So I'll see you people very, very soon. And if I don't see you until tomorrow night, Laila Tov, wonderful to see all your faces. I'm sure I'm not seeing everybody, but whoever I am seeing, a kiss to everybody.
Thank you, Amos. Thank you, Amos. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Good to see everyone.
As you make me more happy from happy.
And it's good to see you. Bye, everyone.
How do I go out?